What's going on, everyone? Hey, Doki, good to see you here. I just wanted to let you guys know that I updated those emojis. So I know, Doki, you love those things. I was able to put in 16 of them. So I added every one of them that I possibly could. They're hard, man. They're hard to get just right. They have to be completely square, and that's actually not as easy as it sounds. Alpha Beta, how's it going? I know that the live stream is going on right now on the actually it's not live, it's just a premiere. So I didn't want to take away from that, but as you guys know, I often don't have a lot of opportunities to go live, and it's quiet right now, so I am going live. Didn't know what to really talk about, so I finished my presentation, just so you guys know that on the 6th, I will be giving a presentation on Genesis genetics. And I am really excited about that because I think it is the most important aspect of how to defeat evolution that there is. And I also think that a presentation is kind of needed because we cover usually just one or two topics when we go live. And though that's nice, we get into a little bit too much detail sometimes, and we get a little too technical sometimes. So I'm hoping that this live stream that I'll be giving during my presentation will be nice and short and simple on each and every subject. And I'm going to cover massive amounts of material. So I'm really excited about it. The only way this wouldn't happen is if my presentation folder somehow got deleted. I don't see that happening. So until that time, I think that the presentations is going to go pretty good. I think I'm finished with it right now, or at least just say I'm happy with it right now. There's only 3 more images that I need to make, and that's a long time away still. So now I can get back to doing some videos because this presentation has taken me a really long time to create, longer than any video that I've ever made. Just so you guys know, that's the time that has gone into creating the presentation that's going to be made. Like I would say 3 months is how long it took me to make the flood video, for example. That was a long one, but this is taking the cake, man. This is crazy stuff. Okay, yeah. So I guess today, since no questions have come in yet, most people are not even here probably anyway, I thought I would go over the story of Saint Helena. And now this woman is the mother of the famous Constantine. We all know who Constantine is because the King James Bible you're holding is attributed because of him. He's the one that sanctioned to have it put together into a single book. So Constantine is already famous, but very few people know about his parents and who they are and who they were and what they believed and what's going on and why is she important at all and how did she become a saint. And so we're going to jump into that, but I also have a quick video that I'm going to play that will introduce you to Constantine, the twist side of things. Okay, so that could be quite fun. And I'll play it right now. Let me make sure my sound is good. And here we go.
At the beginning of the Christian movement, Jesus' followers were fed to wild animals for Roman entertainment. Then, as the story goes, the Roman Emperor Constantine had a vision of the cross, which inspired him to adopt Jesus as his savior. As a result, the West became Christian. But did Constantine really convert to Christianity? Or are modern Christians worshiping a version of Jesus created by a die-hard pagan?
Okay, there was a lot to unpack right there. So we'll just skip right to the end of that statement. That are we following the image of a Jesus that was created by Constantine? Well, first of all, Constantine didn't have any influence on what made it into scripture and what didn't. He was a political leader above all things, and he mostly focused on war. See, when he was really young, his mother and father separated. And so what happened is, thank you, Toki. What happened is he was growing up and his mother and father separated because he started getting an eye for another woman who was high in royalty, and she was the daughter of a king. So he divorced his current wife, who had their son Constantine, and married into royalty, essentially. During this time, he took his son and they went on to the battlefield, and he taught his son how to fight and do things. And Constantine was quite young at this time. And what happened is, just a year after this, he died, leaving the entire kingdom to Constantine. So at this time, Christians were heavily persecuted. They were being killed by the Romans in waves constantly. They were being thrown to the lions. And Constantine now, being a political person, thought to himself, wait a minute, if I put an end to this, maybe I can get some more soldiers for war. So he put an end. I'm not sure if it was at this time or after the first battle, because what happened is another war rose up when he was king. And what he did is he went into the battlefield, and as you saw from the video, he saw the image of a cross in the sky. And he took this as a sign that, wait a minute, I might win this battle because of Christ. And he did win. So what he did is, when he came back, he put a stop to all of the Christians being thrown to the lions. And so a lot of people thought, hey, he converted to Christianity. He must be a Christian now. When we start to look in history at the different structures that he erected in his name, they are mostly pagan. There's almost nothing Christian about them at all. Matter of fact, when we look at the statues of Apollo that he had placed behind him, he actually had his face placed on the statues of Apollo. So clearly, not only was he pagan, he thought of himself as a god, pretty much, from what we can tell anyway, from the artwork, is that he thought of himself equal to God, or above, or the same as. So he wanted to be worshipped none the same. Now, this brings us back to, what about his parents? Well, we know his father died, but his mother actually did become a convert. Hey, Jerome, how's it going, man? So Constantine's mother actually did become a convert. And when she became a convert, something very interesting happened. His mother decided, wait a minute, I can actually prove if this Christianity stuff is true or not. So what she did is she actually went to Jerusalem with the account, an open bank account from the treasury of the king, and had access to all of the royal treasury and money. So think about that. We now have a Christian woman that has access to all of the money in the entire kingdom to prove if Christianity is true or not. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So what she did is she went to Jerusalem with a bunch of her slaves, obviously, and as she was there, she started looking for some of these Christian relics. She wanted to find, is there any physical proof of this story? So she couldn't find anything, and neither could the people that she was with. This is pretty obvious, because it would be like you today going into a foreign town looking for evidence for something. You don't know where to begin. You don't know the terrain. You don't know the people. You don't know the customs or the culture. So what she did is really quite violent. Obviously, she's a new Christian at this point, and as you guys know, if you've come from atheism, we're not the most meek people. So what she did is she said, gather up all of the intelligent people and all the religious people and bring them out here. I want all the historians and all the religious scholars placed in front of me. So they amassed all these people and they brought them out to the gates, and they stood before her, and she said, I want to know where all of these ancient places are that are dealing with this Christ person. And they weren't saying anything. A lot of them are Jewish and even didn't believe in the story anyway. And so what did she do? Well, like any good Christian, she beat them. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a good Christian move. But what she did is she actually had them tortured. She threw them into wells until their memory came back to them. Essentially, what she did is she said, if you don't want to tell me, that's fine. You can live down here in a well until you decide to tell me. So she had them thrown into a cold water well until they said, you know what, I think I'm going to tell you where those places are now. So she had them removed, and she took them and had them point to exact locations where these supposed events, like Jesus Christ resurrection, where Jesus Christ crucifixion took place. And they pointed all of these out, and she mapped them. After she had them mapped, what she did is she went and had the first ever archaeological digs performed in history. So this is where it gets incredible. So she went over and somebody said, this is the site of the crucifixion and where Jesus actually died. So what happened is she had a turned or burn approach. Yeah, literally. Yes, she did. She was extremely violent. So she went over to these sites and said, okay, excavate all of this area, right? She's rich. She can have this done. So they went over and they started digging, and they couldn't find anything in this one area, right? They were digging in this one area, 12 by 12 foot area. So she was going to have that guy killed for lying to her. So the people were, he was like, no, just keep digging. Look around this area. This is definitely it. And so the other people that had agreed with him thought like, oh man, if he dies, we just got to like make something up. But luckily they actually found something. And this is where it gets crazy. They dug down in this area and they spread it out and they found 3 crosses. And this is what made her world famous, by the way. And so they found these crosses, these wood crosses, and they took them out and they kept excavating in the area, and they found a cloth, and inside of the cloth wrapped up nails. And then so they opened up the cloth and actually found that it was a robe. So now they have many different types of things. They have a robe that's all one piece. They have nails inside of it. I think 3 of them. Or 2 of them in particular, that's for sure, maybe a possible 3. And then they have 3 crosses. So now she has this evidence, right? Wait a minute, we found the crucifixion area, we found the crosses, we found nails, and we found maybe even the seamless robe of Jesus Christ that's mentioned in Scripture. And this is profound. So what did she do? She said, well, there's no way to know what crosses, which one is the cross that touched Jesus. So what are we going to do about this? Like, how can we figure this out? So what they did is they asked the people, which one is the cross? Like, these guys are going to know, right? And they had no idea. One guy pointed and said, it's that one, it's that one. So they said, okay. So they took the cross, and what they decided is like, well, if this is really the cross of Jesus, then it should have some miraculous powers to it. This is the belief back then, right? These are mythical relics that belong to the gods, right? So what they did is they touched the cross on a person that had leprosy, or the person with leprosy actually touched the cross and nothing happened. So he went cross to cross, and the third one that he touched actually healed him from leprosy. So this cross was immediately pinned as the cross that Jesus was crucified on. So the mother, before I guess I could go on with the stories about other things that she found while she was there excavating, but we'll take this story and we'll now go back to Constantine. She wanted her son to be successful in battle, of course. So what she did is she actually had some of these nails. One of them is called the nail of Trier. It's because that's where it's located today. And she had it basically made into the headdress that you can see right here into the king. And it was a piece of iron that was taken, and the blacksmith forged it into his crown so that he would be safe on the battlefield. The other one is made into the armor of the horse itself, so that the steed also wouldn't fall in battle. And the true cross was actually placed inside of a statue of Apollo that was erected above the Colosseum, or I should say to the side of the Colosseum at the time. It doesn't exist today because it was made of solid bronze, and it was after a couple hundred years after his death, it was ripped down and stripped of material. So they lost that piece. But there are fragments of the cross that still exist to this day. And so she was notorious for being the first woman to ever have an archaeological dig done looking for Christian evidence. And she found these relics. And then so she found these nails. They are in museums today. They were removed from the headpiece and things like that. And then what happened is they said, well, there's a lot of fake relics, so this just could be some in the long line of forgeries, right? But here's the interesting thing about that. Because when we line these things up, we can actually deem whether or not there's any truth or validity to them, because these are all supposedly tracked back to the same place in the same time, right? We have the Shroud of Turin, which we can track back in time all the way back to the time of Christ. We have the Sudorium of Oviedo, which is the overlaying face of Jesus with the same blood patterns and the same blood type and the same face. So it's pretty logical to conclude that they are of the same person. And then we have the seamless robe of Jesus that matches. And then we have this weird nail over here, right? The nail of Trier. And we want to know, like, is there any correlation between these things? Are these actual relics that can converge? Do they actually go back and confirm one another? Because as Christians, we don't really look at relics. That's more of like a Catholic thing, right? But as an apologist, I want as many physical pieces of tangible evidence that I can have. See, they worship these types of things over in Catholicism, right? They love to venerate saints, and they love to venerate relics. And I think that's going too far, obviously, as a Christian. But I think that there are good tools to use to evangelize because they're physical, tangible evidence that we can put to scientific use. So what happened is when we investigated the Shroud of Turin, we actually looked at the crucifixion holes in the body, and we actually found that they do match the nail of Trier. So that is astonishing. They literally couldn't join and go with one another. So it adds more credibility to not only the stories, but the science saying that these things are all pointing to the same person. Yeah, I know. We don't know much about history of people that are literally documented in history. We know so little about Constantine and his family that it's still confusing to this day, and yet they're completely documented, and the documents conflict with one another. We don't know exactly what religion he followed the most. We don't know what he believed the most. We don't really know if he was an adherent religious person or more of a political person. We don't know what, like, really, was he married? Like, his first wife, did they actually get married? Some say no, they had a kid together, but they were never married because there was no divorce. And he married his second wife, but that first woman he was with never officially got divorced, so they must have never officially gotten married. Like, it's so confusing. We don't know anything, and yet they want to say we know exactly what happened when we find a single finger bone in the ground with no information at all on it whatsoever. They're going to tell you the history, the life history of something that they found in a place. It's so stupid. It's just so dumb. So what I try to do is I try to take these stories and say, let's read through these things. Let's figure out, like, who these people were. Like, what did they find? Like, what did they know? Like, here's a piece of the cross going right up the middle. This isn't anything. It's just a gold thing to make it look like a cross. But here's a piece of that one cloth that was supposed to be the one that touched Jesus. And it's at a Catholic church, I believe, in Vienna. But as I was saying earlier, the stories are magnificent. And I think that there's always a little bit of truth mixed in, even when it's lost through history, and we can puzzle it together, even with fragments of like, oh, what did she do when she got there? Some say, oh, she was a Christian. She was just wonderful, and asked the people where they were, and they took her and they showed her. And then we find evidence that she wasn't too nice when she first became a Christian. Others say, oh, no, she was always a Christian. She was a Christian even before Constantine was around. It's like, well, if that's true, then why didn't she instill any of that in him? He wasn't a Christian at all. He was a complete pagan who followed Mithraism. And when the Christians started to finally be accepted, he gave them freedom, but he only allowed them to worship in pagan temples. And when you look at Christian portraits today and they have the sunbeam behind them, that's because they were only allowed to worship on the pagan day of the sun, which is Sunday. They weren't allowed to go on the Sabbath, which is Saturday, to go worship. They had to do it in the pagan temples on the day of worship the pagans worshiped. So they had to share it first, and they got to share it last, meaning they had to listen to all of the pagan rituals before they could even get to their Christian ones. See, he mixed everything together, and that's what formed Catholicism. Because if you think about what the word Catholicism means, it means universal, and it accepted everything. It mixed in pagan idolatry with Catholicism. That's why it's so rooted with so many pagan idolatry things today. That's why it's not part of Christianity, and why we kind of moved out of it and created another name, because we're like, you know what, it's too rooted in paganism. We got to move away from it. Well, in the beginning stages, they just took what they could get. They're like, well, what what can we do? We'll be killed. Like, you know what I mean? We just got thrown to lions. We should be thankful for being to worship at all. So we'll just worship in these temples. But by doing so, they involuntarily started adopting a lot of these pagan things. And a lot of these things are what we see today, and it's kind of a mess. But you know what I mean? That's history. History changes, and it influences what we believe today, and that's why it's so important for us to study. And I see a comment. When you read through the crimson line of the papacy, you see that they are seriously sick. Wow, yeah. Oh man, you got to get rid of that face. That that picture of Dan is just here. I'll do it. There you go, everyone. You want to look at Dan? There you go. Oh my gosh. I did the best I could when I was looking up this picture, by the way. I was trying to do him some justice because I was making a meme that I want to have in my slideshow. And I had to take some pictures of these guys. And it's tough, let me tell you. They're not very flattering. They're not very, there we go. That's what I made. Sunk cost fallacy is the phenomenon where a person is reluctant to abandon any strategy of course of action because they're already heavily invested in it. And it's clear, it's true. You know, if they were to abandon this, they would be so much better off, but they can't do it, right? So that's the fallacy. That's what these people are, the epitome of that type of a fallacy, right? Like they know if they change their mind, their financial income is stunted. The education that they paid for was pointless. Their friendships that they've acquired through all of this is gone. They would literally harm their own future. So, oh man, good one. Well, I was just excited to get this stream in. Obviously, you guys know that I'm coming up to have this presentation right here that I'll be giving, this Genesis Genetics, and I am ready to tear this thing up. I haven't practiced it at all, and I don't know how long it's going to be. I wanted to give a trial run on here for the members, so I don't know if I'll get a chance to do that or not, because I think it's going to take me maybe 3 hours, and that's if I move quick like I usually do. So I don't want to move fast, though. You see, I'm here to teach Christians on how to get better with apologetics. So if I fly through everything, you're not going to learn anything. It's just me trying to get through my presentation. So I need to take a chill pill on that day and, maybe do it like right when I wake up. And then we can get through the presentation nice and slow, easily, fun, exciting. We're going to be recording it, I guess, in the morning and then premiering it at the night. And the unfortunate part about that is I won't be able to do Q&A live. So what I'm going to try to do is after the premiere actually does happen, maybe I can go live on my channel and give any questions that came through as super chats, because I know people are fooled all the time. Every time there's a premiere, people think it's live. Like even just before I went live on Standing for Truth channel, people thought Kent was actually debating and they were giving super chats again. It's like, man, this is a premiere that's like a marathon. It's literally 8 hours. This isn't live, guys, but no matter how many times we say it, people still think it's live. So I have no doubt that they're going to confuse the fact that I'm actually going to be giving a presentation that was filmed earlier and confuse it with me being actually there and live. So I'm going to compile up all the questions and then just answer them probably on my channel later. So yeah, the conference is going to be awesome. Usually I try to help Donnie with some, making images and doing things for him, but he's got to have it covered now because my presentation is just so crazy that I can't help other people right now. This is it's going to be fun. We're going to go through things like creation versus evolution on what Darwin predicted with the tortoises on the Galapagos Islands. We're going to talk about predictions on genetic similarities. We're going to be going over, people groups. Where did people evolve from? Is it actually Noah's Ark, or was it from what National Geographic and Evolution says, from a primitive primate ancestor? What about the Y chromosome, mutational buildup? What did they predict? What did we predict? How about the mitochondrial lines of women? They predicted that we would go back in time to about 10,000 different women, but yet we only find a single line. We have mutation rates. Evolution predicted slow, very few mutations. We predicted multiple mutations, tons of them rapidly. They predict neutral theory over time. We predict predict that neutral theory is stupid because different mutation rates for different things. They predict a linear evolution. We predict independent lines of origins. Literally nothing could be different. Their entire field is 100% different than ours. So I can't wait to tear this up. I have a question. Is the Y chromosome Adam or equal Noah? Yes, it is. Yes, it's Noah. It is Noah, and that is for sure Noah. And the reason why is because anytime there's a bottleneck that would happen, it reduces and resets all genetic diversity. But what happened is when we read the story of Noah, we read that there were 3 women on the ark. So we know now that we can trace mutations past those 3 women because there was more than one, and we can trace them back to Eve. But if there was only one woman on the ark, like there was only one man on the ark, meaning, Noah and his sons, we can only trace Noah's Y chromosome back to him. But if there were 2 males that weren't related, let's say Noah and a friend of his, then we would actually be able to trace the Y chromosome mutation rate all the way back to Adam. But unfortunately, because we only have one male Y chromosome, we can only go back to Noah himself. Now, this is actually really good, and I'll tell you why. Because the fact that we're able to take the mitochondria and go further back in time to Eve, it's really nice to know that we can take the Y chromosome and go back to a different time period. That way we can prove 2 different events at the same time using mutation rates. Because if there was only one woman on the ark, let's say Noah's wife and all of her kids, we would only be able to go back in time to Noah's generation. We would never be able to go back to creation like we see with the mitochondria. So we can take mitochondria and we can go all the way back in time, because there were 3 different women on the ark, all the way back to Eve. But because there was only one male line of the Y chromosome, we can only go back to Noah's flood and Noah himself. And because all his sons were related directly to him, they would have had the exact same Y chromosome as him anyway, just with more mutations. So what we can do is we can actually go up to my Y chromosome presentation part, and I'll show you what I mean by that. We can skip over here to the end, and we can say, boom. So when we looked inside of the Y chromosome, we find lots and lots of mutations. Actually, this picture actually might be reversed. I'm glad I actually showed you this because that picture is not right. Anyway, the observed mutation total inside of the Y chromosome ended up being 440 to 450 people in today's people. Well, if there's 3 mutations every single generation from Noah till people today, we only go back 400 or 146 generations. So that's not very far ago, right? If we use a 30-year generation time, that only takes us back 4,380 years ago. Changing that generation time, of course, to 35 years takes us back 5,110 years ago. So obviously you can change that date just by changing the generation time. But the evidence only points to young Earth creation. You can't get evolutionary dates from the observable mutation rate whatsoever. This evidence came from that new book, Traced. I just broke it down in a little more visual terms for everybody to see. And how we can do that is by this chart that I had made right here. And this is one of the best charts of all because we have Noah, and then we go to the first generation, which are his sons, which have now 3 mutations in them. It's the first generation. And then we take that to the next generation and then the next generation before we get to Peleg's generation, which has 16 mutations in them. And then we find an explosion in haplogroups. So that is extremely strong evidence for young Earth creation. Literally, the history of humanity is written in our genetics and in our DNA, and we can trace back now because of the Y chromosome mutation rate, which is constant. And we can literally count all the way back to Noah himself and actually look back and see when these haplogroups formed. And they're right exactly when the Bible predicted that Peleg's generation dispersed and people spread across the world, and we can see it written into our genetics. So let's get on here with this. I used to love National Geographic magazine until God's light removed the scales. Yeah, I have all the way as well. I have a box of all of the old National Geographics going all the way back to when I was a kid, and I kept all the maps that were inside of them. and they're old school now. I'm glad I kept them though. Matter of fact, that's probably a good idea. I should go through those sometimes. There's probably content in there that's just so funny now. You know how evolution changes every month. So I could find some gold in those things that we could laugh at sometime. That's a good thing you mentioned that. That'd be fun. So I hope that answered it good enough for you. If you want me to explain it in a different way or better, just let me know. But that's the best way I would explain it. You know, evolution predicted that there would be a lot of different Y chromosomes going back in time because there were lots of different males. They never predicted that there was only a single male ancestor that lived in the very recent past. It completely contradicts the evolutionary model. That's why I say creation wins hands down, and we win literally all the way. And when we line up with what creation versus evolution predicted based on the evolutionary route and how many mutations they were expecting, creation won hands down based on our predictions beforehand. So if you want to read the study on it, it's called Testing the Predictions of the Y Chromosome Molecular Clock. Jensen's very technical though, so you don't always get the most exciting answers from him. You get the most technical, scientifically minded answers. But nonetheless, you will get answers. And I can even go over how he came up with those studies. When you actually look at what happened is, if you look right here on the left, you can see that in 2009 and 2015 were the first pedigree studies that were really ever done on the Y chromosome. You know, they have, evolutionists, they always just assume a mutation rate because they base everything on the fossil record. So what they do is they take the idea that there was a split around 6 to 7 million years ago and just extrapolate back and invent a mutation rate based on math. They don't use science. They don't use observable evidence. They don't use any of that. So what happened is, when these studies happened in the blue, they had a small little tiny bit of the Y chromosome that they took out and they looked at and they counted up the mutations that they saw. And there weren't very many. So they said, see, evolution is true. Well, then came along Carmen and Marty in 2015 and 2017, and they actually did the first sequencing of the entire Y chromosome, looking at all of it for the first time ever. It was called high sequencing, high quality data. And then they finally counted up all the mutations that were inside the Y chromosome, and it was completely different than what they had gotten in the past by only looking at small segments. And that makes sense. But you see, they weren't really sure with the Y chromosome, because when they looked inside the mitochondria, you can test the entire mitochondria and it doesn't really matter, because most of the mutations actually take place in one area. It's called the D loop, or the control region. So when they looked inside the Y chromosome, they assumed that it was probably the same. So when they only found a few mutations, they said, there's no reason to look in the other compartments because there are probably no mutations there. We found where they're at. So they ignored them. So then the big problem came for them is when we tested the entire thing. Dr. Jensen actually found that when you count up all of the mutations, you actually find that there's 3 mutations per person per generation in these pedigree mutation rates. And that's what happened. And that's why when we looked at the raw data, they were able to say, oh my gosh, we didn't expect this. And so they tried to hide the data, and they didn't actually release it to the public. And they hid it inside of what you would call the supplemental data. And they didn't really show the public. That's why Dr. Jensen had to run the math and find it himself, because they weren't willing to give it to the public. He had to dig it out, and because they hid it. Typical evolutionary style lies. You got to hide things from the public, right? Because if they find out the truth, they'll drop evolution in a heartbeat. But, if they keep changing everything, U-turning and reinventing and dodging, they can just dodge their way and hopefully into the next decade or two, right? I mean, it's not bad. It's bad enough that they're protected by law, but, it gets really bad when they just make things up as they go along. So let me close up all these windows here. Man, I opened up a lot. I didn't even realize. Holy cow. This is crazy. I had no idea I opened up so many things. All right. Well, anyway, there's one National Geographic magazine recently about endogenous retroviruses that is comet gold, standing for truth. Yeah. Oh, man. ERVs are just funny at this point. It was great because they thought they had it, right? Like, this is the best evidence we've got. There's no doubt. ERVs are what we've got. And then we come along and we're like, yoink, that's evidence for creation. Sorry, guys. That's ours now. So, oh, hello. Good to see more people joining. Just wanted to say hi and sorry to take away from the Standing for Truth marathon that's running today. I just had my opportunity to go live, and I have to take them every opportunity and every chance that I get. I just hope you guys enjoy my little random tirades and rants, and I'm glad for the questions because oftentimes I have no idea what I'm going to talk about when I do these things. So if you guys ever do have questions, write them down when you think of them and then bring them to me. If you guys want me to review something live, send me the link. We'll open it and we'll destroy it live right here. I don't care. If you guys are in a debate with people online and you want to destroy them, let's do it together. That'll be fun. All of it's exciting to me. I like it all. And now that my presentation is that close to being done, I'll finally have the ability to do something else, go back to making videos, hopefully. But I work late now, so who knows when I'll have time again. But right now is that chance and opportunity that I had. I tried to do a little background drop, as you guys will see in a minute. I was playing around with visuals, and I was like, man, look, I got a blue screen behind me, but look how bad this looks. I can't get this thing to work. I don't know what it is. I'm just a floating head. And I'm blurry at that. Look, I try to minimize it and get rid of it. It just does not work. Like, what is going on here? I can't figure this thing out. I've tried different backgrounds, trying to make something fun so you don't have to just look at my ugly mug the whole time, and I can't get it to work. I don't know what to do when it comes to that. So, have you had a chance to read The Invisible Rainbow? Oh yeah, I know. That's I got it from Amazon, though. Luckily you sent it to there. So go back full screen for a second. All right. Hold on. Whoops. I think I got stop screen sharing. There we go. All right. Hold on. And then visual backgrounds. There we go. Look at this. Like a floating head. I go, ah. You couldn't even tell what I'm doing. Look at this. I can hover. It's horrible. Why does this thing look so bad? I mean, I'm glad I didn't pay for this. I'd be pissed. It's built in. It's just something that's part of what they've got inside of StreamYard. So you can put a background and then you got blue screen and then you can set your face and have it be awesome. This doesn't look awesome at all. This is horrible. Look at this. Here I am. Now I'm just floating around in hell. There we go. No. People who still believe in evolution have never studied the other side. That is exactly right. And that is the biggest problem that I have with dealing with people online, because they are critics of a theory and an argument that they know nothing about. And I'm arguing with people even right now on Quora, and I've never joined it. I had an account, I guess, but I never really spent any time doing it. And for the last day or so, I find it fun. I go on and it's just ignorance, complete ignorance. You want to see a couple? Hold on. Let's look at some of these. Just hold on. I got to share screen again. Oh, share screen. All right. Doesn't look so good. Kind of small. But look at how fun this is. Okay, somebody asked a question: is creationism taught as a fact in Christian schools? I said no. Unfortunately, most Christians don't know much about the subject. Most schools teach evolution. Catholics believe Genesis is allegorical, so they don't know the first thing about creation science. only 40 to 45% of Americans believe in, oh, geez, look at the yogurt. I can edit that. That's what's nice about this. Believe in, where is it? Where is it? Young Earth creation. So I answered that, and then in came the tirade, right? Here was the first guy. He said, what an abuse of the word science, right? Putting creation next to science. And I said, so do you conflate the word science with evolutionism? If so, I have bad news for you. And this guy replied yesterday to me, and he was so afraid that he vanished. He totally ran away because he can't handle it, right? So I said, hey, you're the one that replied, and last time played the victim card, hoping that someone would come along and refute me on a subject you say is wrong, yet you know nothing about. Sound about right? So that was pretty fun. It looks like he's been replying, so I'll get to come back to these now. And then, but first, let's go on these. This guy, Christopher Morse. This is a fun one, probably. Oh, no, I talked to him down here, unfortunately. It goes, one of the great oxymorons of all time, creation science, right? And it says the guy who knows nothing about the subject. So, boy, your opinion sure is important to everyone here, right? Started laughing at him. He said, first, not science. I don't know what that means. It is not even a good religion. It's a farce. So I said, so that's two people that don't know the first thing about the subject. Bravo, right? So now I'll just wait for those replies. They'll probably give up because they realize they're idiots and don't know the first thing about the subject, right? I believe in yogurt. Yeah. What do we got going on here? It looks like this guy didn't even bother replying, but here's this thing. It says, I'm a retired physician. I know plenty about biology in general and evolutionary biology in particular, and the fairy tale known as creationism in particular. Who says your opinion is credible, let alone important? And then he makes fun of creationists, calling cretinists. And then he goes on to spout off a guy. So I replied with going against every single one of those, right? I said, I took what he said and I highlighted it and said, oh, really? That's cool. Enlighten us all then. Tell us why our model is actually wrong. As a matter of fact, I can call your bluff. I bet you can't even name a single current creationist prediction. Every single person on Quora here has pretended to know something about the subject, yet cannot even answer a basic question regarding the subject. Maybe you will be the first. Then I took his derogatory statement right here. That guy shoots his own horn too much to actually know anything. Yeah, clearly, right? Patting himself on the back. So then I answered this one. I said, so you are far behind the times that you don't even know that evolution theory is protected by law and that creation science is not taught in the public school education system. Now you expect people to grow up knowing only evolutionary theory to somehow now know something other about creation science? Wow, you're just digging yourself a bigger hole. And I said, basically, oh, by the way, this Isaac guy that he quoted is an old argument from the 1990s of a biology. I said, wrap it up, guys. We got to call it home. And then this guy, right? What model? I have yet to see a coherent, self-consistent model of young Earth creation presented. And this is the derogatory guy that commented above in a different thread. And I said, so it's even worse than I suspected. You not only don't know anything about the model, nor any predictions made, but you don't even know that there is a model. Wow, shocking. You guys are against a subject you literally know nothing about. I am flabbergasted, beyond astonished. Quora is next level. Yeah, Quora, a physician. Yeah, these guys won't debate at all. I've obviously challenged them. Look, I made my own page right here, and I just created it. It's just Matman, right? And I just stated my hobbies. I've already pinned comments. I've already made... Oh, I got 3 people following me. I'm on my way, guys. I made 3 posts I thought would be fun. I tried to advertise the Genesis Genetics Conference. and I made a little Matman space. I don't know what that is. I'm too new here to really realize what's going on. And then I made one about mutation rates of mitochondria and how they help creation and not evolution. And then I responded to myself by talking about the Y chromosome, which we covered today. Yep, he did. Yes, more creationist inventions and predictions. Uh-oh, it looks like they are home. All right, guys. Well, I went far longer than I was expecting to go. I hope you had a good time. Maybe I'll see you guys on Quora. Come and have a good time with me. It's so much fun attacking these guys that are so dogmatic and hate us so much, just to show that they don't know anything about what they're arguing against. Join me over there, and then we'll go live and we'll make some more funny videos about their comments and just destroy them. Until next time, guys. Later.